What is circular warp sprang? How do you do this? That's the subject of this video. So I began by setting up my warp. I tied the string onto the upper bar here, and then I took it around and around in a circular fashion. Every time I passed by the front here, I put the thread through these two sticks. The first time it went under and then over. The second time around the thread went over and then under. And in this way I have the threads, let me zoom in, I have the threads set across this stick, and it holds the order of the threads. I know exactly which one is first, which one is second. These sticks here, the weavers will call this the first cross, keeps my threads in order. Alrighty, so I have my threads set up, and just to check that I did that first cross correctly, I'm going to slide a stick into the space here of the lower one, and I take it all the way around. If I did everything exactly right, this stick will be in the same slot as the upper stick, and yes, that's right, I did it perfectly. That's good. Nothing less than perfection is required at this point. All right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the end of the thread and the beginning of the thread, and I'm going to tie them together here, completing the circuit. There we go. So I have the beginning and end tied together, and now I'm ready to start my work. How does this go? Well, I'm going to work on the threads down here at the bottom. And probably before I start, it's a good idea to lay in a safety string. Now, what is a safety string? It's a thread that goes through this shed, this space here, and if all else fails, things go bad, I can come back to that string and I don't have to throw it away. I know where to go back to start. There we are. Okay, so I'm ready to work my first row. In interlinking sprang, your first row is called an initial row, and the threads just cross in pairs. The back one comes to the front, front goes to the back, back to front, front to back. It's important that I keep the threads in order, and they're going to cross each other in pairs, keeping everything in order. Now I want to notice that the very first pair and the last pair have a bead with them, and that keeps that thread at the edge, which will be important at the very end. Okay, the other thing I like to do is every time I do a row, work a row, I will put in another safety string. If I make an error, I can just come back to that string. Every time I work a row as well, I take the work and I bring it down around and right here back to the start. To keep the cloth compacted, if I want a nice tight work, I'm going to insert another pair of chopsticks here, and that will keep it from springing loose. Alrighty, I have done an initial row, so now, come back to that same space there. Now I'm going to work a plait row, and the plait row begins with a 3-thread edge stitch. I bring 2 threads to the front, and I'm careful to check that one of those threads has got a bead in it. 2 up, 1 down, and then I work my way across the row, 1 up, 1 down, 1 up, 1 down, 1 up, 1 down, all the way across. And the very last stitch is going to be another 3-thread edge stitch involving 2 strings here, then one of which has a bead. Alright, that's the plait row. I'm going to put in another safety string, and then I'm going to take my work down and around, back to the start. And there we go, I've got another row. So I've got a little bit of cloth starting to build up there. At this point I might think, well, that's looking good. I can take out perhaps these sticks here because I'm wanting to pack my work up. I'm wanting this to be nice and tight. I'll pack that upwards, and I'm going to move this row here that had the string in it. I can move that up, pack my work up, 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 and this last row that I did, I can move that up. So I'm getting a little bit of cloth formed here, and the safety strings in there are there just in case I decide I need to rip that out. Okay, but I'm thinking this looks good. I check up here, and that's looking good to me. So I do an overplait row, which is 1 up, 1 down, 1 up, 1 down, 1 up, 1 down, all the way across. And I'm careful to take the threads in order,
and I bring a back thread to the front, which crosses underneath two other threads. Back to front, front to back to front to back. And at the end of the row here I have one up, one down. I check and see, yes, that is indeed the way the row started, with one up, one down. I'm going to lay in another safety string. Make sure I've got that in the right space. There we are. Okay, now I take the work down and around and back to the start. And this is where I check to make sure that it's all looking good. And I should be having what looks like nice chain link fence. Let me zoom in for you, and you can see here how it looks just like chain link fence. The threads crisscross over, first one to the right and then one to the left. And that's the proper look. Alrighty. So now I'm going to work rows of plait and overplait, plait and overplait, until the cloth is built up long enough. This is the first row, and then second row, third row. The cloth is going to build this direction around into the back side of the loom. You don't have to stay here for the whole time. Let me pause the video and you can jump back in when it's gotten a little bit longer. So I've been working on this strap a little while, and you will notice here's the initial row, and I've got several more rows of work done. I've decided to live dangerously and remove some of these safety strings, and I've only got safety strings on the last two rows. I'm noticing that it's getting a little bit tight to work here. This is because as the threads go back and forth, the whole length shrinks a little bit. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to adjust the tension. I can release the strings here, and on the other side I can loosen that up a little bit and give me just a little bit more space on my warp. That's what I'm going to do. I untie the string. It's nice if it goes around twice, because that gives me just a little bit more, makes it easier for me to adjust the length on these strings here. If it goes around twice, it doesn't fall loose so easily. I just let that down a little bit, and on this side as well, to just adjust the tension ever a little bit, give me another inch, and then I tie this back up again, and I can continue to work. There we go. I've given myself just a little bit more space down here, and it makes it easier for me to work. And then I'm going to carry on. Once again, I'm going to pause the video. You don't have to stay around for this whole time. It'll get kind of boring to watch the whole thing. The weaving is progressing again. You can see that my cloth now, one side is this long and the other side goes over the top. You will also notice that the cloth is starting to twist. It kind of rolls around. Now this is very normal, and in my experience it's a temporary sort of thing. Over time the garment will come to lie flat, and you can hasten this process, making it lie flat, by giving it a good wash and laying flat. What I'm saying is, yes, it tends to curl. Try to ignore that as much as possible. And I'm going to carry on working. I've been weaving for a while now, and I'm getting to think I should start thinking about ending. This is where the weaving began, here at the beginning of that initial safety cord, and the first rows happened here, and then after that, every time I did a row I got 2 rows, and it grew down around the back, and now it's to where I'm around the front, and it's starting to get kind of close together here in the front. I don't have a whole lot more to go. How does one finish off cloth like this? It's a very special cloth. It's got a lot of elasticity to it. And how are you going to hem up something that stretches that much? Well, the fact of the matter is, this is a very ancient method of weaving, and people in the past have dealt with this. One way of finishing up the cloth is seen on this neck scarf that I made with a rainbow dyed skein. The way the finish happens on military sashes is that you lay in a sideways thread. Weavers call that a weft. There's a thread that gets laid in this way, and then it crisscrosses back and forth. Every time I take the edges on this side and crisscross it through the next row, crisscross it back several times. On the military sashes this happened about 5 times. I'm thinking that maybe 3 times will suffice for us. Alright, so how does this work? Well, I put in a thread of contrasting color. Usually you will use the same color, but so you can see it better, I'm going to put a thread. It works just like a safety thread at first. I lay a thread in there sideways, and then I'm going to work another row right below that. So I work my row here. It can be continuing on in the interlinking method, or you might choose just to reverse your shed, bringing back to front and front to back. I'm working another row here. This is a plait row, and at the end of the row I'm going to, yes, shove it down, but I'm also going to take these ends and I'm going to crisscross them through. So that side comes through to here, and this string is going to go through to the other side. So I've crisscrossed them there. I'm going to come down to the bottom here, and at the bottom, let me put in my safety stick. At the bottom I'm going to take this string and pass it through, and the other string pass it through the other direction. So it's crisscrossed on both ends. Alright, I go back up here, and I'm going to work another row up to the top here, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, all the way across the row. This makes a very firm finish. It holds it really nice and snug, and I like it a lot, this method of finishing. Okay, so I've done another row there. I will take these two ends and I will crisscross them through. Crisscross, crisscross. I shove this down to the bottom, and I'll take the bottom threads. The right end passes to the left, and left end passes through that space to the right. So I have that thread crossed both up at the top and at the bottom. Alright, I've taken it through 3 times. The first time it's a single thread, the second and the third time I've got double threads in the space, and that indeed is seen in these historic sashes. One more time I'm going to cross, bring front to back, back to front, to make it easier at the top of my fringe, I think. I like to do one more row after I've gotten finished crossing. I take front to back, back to front, there we go. And now I think I'm done. I'm going to put in a safety stick here just to hold them until I get them in order. Another thing I might mention to you, it's not necessary to pull these tight just yet. I can tighten them once I've got them cut apart and once they're on the table there. Alright, so now I'm going to cut these threads apart here in the middle, and then I will take it over to the table and I'll show you how I finish it off. There we go. So the burning question has been, what's up with these beads and this beginning and ending knot there at the very middle? I know that's been bothering you. I've been hearing that from this side of the video. I've been hearing you thinking that, wondering all about that. Yes, these safety strings, we can remove them quite easily, but you're wondering what's happening with those beads and this beginning and ending thing. This string here, there are a couple options that we can have. If you've left enough of them, you might then take a needle and you can work that string in and just add an extra thread along the edge. But really, my favorite way of dealing with this is that I take this string and I'm just going to pull it out completely, and it should be the thread that, yes, this is the thread that was attached to the bead there, and as I pull here, it just comes out and that bead now is loose. It was very important to keep that bead at the very edge. Now, on purpose, I let it wander inland at one point, and you can see the little problem we have here because that thread didn't stay at the edge. There was a little place where I let it drift inland. On the other side now, I did indeed keep that bead at the edge, and this on this end here, it should be just fine. I'm going to pull that thread out, and that bead, watch that bead, you're going to see that thread is coming short, that bead comes off, and on this side it was good the whole way because I was very good about making sure that bead was on the edge. Make sure that the bead stays on the edge the full length of the piece so that you can remove it and not have a problem. So now I've removed that beginning and end thread. Okay, I'm one thread shy on either end, but when you have 80 to 100 threads, you don't notice just one. And my piece is complete. All I need to do is to snug up the threads here at my fringe head. I can just snug that up, and then I can somehow twist these threads into a fringe, and I will incorporate these edge pieces, and there you go. I will have a very nice little strap with a fringe on either end.